And I'm going to welcome you all here this morning and this evening for you, Lynn. Thank you so much for being here. And I am keen to ensure that I can give you, that this half an hour or a bit more is valuable for you. So loving your information here and feedback on why you've popped in. Trying to create healthy breakfast rituals. Yes, it's all about how we wake up and start our day. Sets the tone for the day, doesn't it? And then ideas and new ideas around what to have for breakfast. Making sure you're doing the right thing. That's good, yeah. And Nell's agreeing with Michelle. So part of the routine. Okay, so that gives me a sense that it's not just about what we do, but what drives us to do it, or the person behind the behavior as well. And so that is my passion. And I think what separates me from some of the other people that you might be listening to, which is often all about what you should eat and what you should do. And I think there's a space there. And this is really coming into this question here, why this is important to me, because my vision is that people, through their challenges with their weight or with their health, that they, oh, hello, Alyssa. I'm just muting people so I can can focus myself. You know how it is. So what's important to me is that us women become empowered, and too many of us are caught up in the food prison. We are trapped by a constant desire to lose weight, constant desire to manage the way we eat, and because we should be slimmer, we should be healthier, we should, and I find that imprisonment utterly disempowering for women. And through my experience, I feel I've got something powerful to offer people that is not just about the what, but the human being as well. And so that's what I'm, in a nutshell, sharing today. I mean, you're only getting a very small taste of that. So if there is something that you like about what I'm saying, of course, there's the opportunity to work with me. That's why we do this stuff, right? And I can hear somebody, so I'm just going to ask Anita, if you don't mind, I'm just going to mute you. I'm not sure if it's you, but that's great. Thank you so much. So who am I? For those of you who don't know me, who am I? I call myself a holistic health coach. It's really personal development and health together, that our health is a spiritual journey. Our health is a personal development journey. And so my qualifications include naturopathic medicine. I've done that, in fact, twice, 30 years ago, and again, upgrading about 8 years ago. I'm a credentialed life coach. Early 2000s, I became a qualified life coach, and then went on to get the credential, which meant I had to do 1,000 hours and get all of that process with the International Coach Federation. I'm an aromatherapist and energetic medicine practitioner, and this is where I started to bring tools into my toolkit so that I can help people with the blocks, the habits that won't go away, the drivers and the emotional stuff that's underlying. And anyone who's working with me, and there's a couple of you on this call, you'll know that I bring in the essential oils. I put in bark flowers into your herbs because I'm trying to help ease those blocks that we have that make it difficult. It might be a fear or a trauma or a limiting belief that so much of our behavior is driven by. Similarly with yoga and meditation, because mindfulness is a really big part of better choice making. So many of us, if we're not conscious, we make the default choice, the automatic choice. And that is where we go wrong sometimes. And wrong, I mean that in a very wrong in not that you're bad, but in terms of where you'd like to be. It's the wrong choice for the outcome that you really want to be aligned with. In fact, there is actually nothing wrong, because every so-called wrong choice is a little red flag saying, over here, this is what is not working. And so we are wanting to bring mindfulness into it. I follow the Wise Traditions diet, and I'll elaborate a little bit on that later. And the reason for that is because it's the most intelligent, common sense, practical approach to eating that I've ever come across. It's got space for a ton of variety, but it's backed up with thousands and thousands of years of tradition, plus massive amount of science now showing why it's valid. And I love that. It's the science and the spirit of nutrition. I also present on Wise Women's mysteries, the mysteries of the rites of passage of women, menopausal rite of passage, etc., because I find that storytelling, that narrative, absolutely inspirational for women who are disempowered by, let's call it what it is, a largely patriarchal culture. And I have nothing against men. I have no resentment towards the way things are at the moment. It's just time for women to become the best that they can be. And I find that story behind how powerful women really are, it's like the her story rather than the his story. I find that very empowering and beautiful. So what we're going to discuss, not so much 30 minutes anymore, a little less, but just really some value for you, I think, around choosing when to eat, when and how, that kind of thing. That's not very clear, but when to eat, how to eat enough. So if you have issues with portion control or unconscious eating, or you eat for other reasons other than hunger, then there's some strategies and techniques. I'm only going to give you one today, but if you're, like I said, if you're interested in more, there's more available. And how to make empowered food choices. That's the nutrition part of it. And I think I wrote in a post or wrote somewhere the other day that you do actually need a degree these days in nutrition to know what to eat. And honestly, you don't have time. I've done it twice at least, and that's not the 6-month little, coaching nutrition class, but 3 or 4 years of nutrition. And so what I try to do is to make that very practical and simple for you so that you don't have to go and do that yourself. But you do actually have to have some foundations, some accurate foundations for making great choices. And the reason for that is the freedom. It's about freedom, not having to diet, not having to be blaming yourself all the time because you have a bad day, or, it's not all about weight either. Sometimes it's about energy. So, on the poll that I did on my Wildly Healthy Women Facebook page, the number one thing that people are struggling with is having enough energy. And so I'm conscious that you might be listening and not having a weight concern, but you might be listening and because your lifestyle, including your eating, is not giving the energy that you need to do everything that you need to do. If you're hungry or nutritionally deficient, you'll think about food all the time, and who needs that, right? We've got other things to think about. And the fourth thing here is to find your natural weight. So there's a natural, the thing about habits and routines and sticking to routines, and it starts with first thing in the morning. If you can start with one thing in the morning, you get up, you meditate, or you get up and you exercise, or you get up and you have a good breakfast, and then you build on that from there, then you start to have your life handled. And when you have your routine and your system in place, it takes a lot of attention away from having to worry or think about food or health all the time. So it's about not so much about your habits, but about your systems, because we've got 1,000 habits. If we're always thinking about habits, then we'll never get where we want to go. If we think about systems and putting systems in place, then we're going to be much more successful. And I don't go into a lot of detail about systems here, but just keep that in mind, that if you've failed in the past, it is likely that your system needs a work on and needs an upgrade, more so than your actual behavior, because they correlate. So the kind of people that are interested in the way I do things and the way I talk about things and what I have to share, is people who, yes, you can go to a gym or you can go to a dietitian and they can give you the meal plan, or you can go to the gym and they'll give you, okay, you do this, 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 and this, and you eat this, 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 and this, and I guarantee you'll lose weight. And that's absolutely true. And if that's what appeals, then go and do that, because that's not what I'm about. I'm about people who really want to go inside and find their own inner guidance. And so restrictive diets is just more restriction. It's just more rules. It's just more pain and panic and self-flagellation, and it doesn't work. It's all based on hating yourself, and hating yourself doesn't get you what you want. If you want more clarity on the best way, I'm a passionate teacher, educator. So, I used to think it was all about what you know, and I know it now. It isn't. It isn't just about what you know, but it helps to have some foundational guidance and clarity on what you have to do, the guidelines, let's call them. And totally, too many rules make us rule bound. And I'm the queen of rules, so I've had to let go of all of that and turn them into guidelines and build some flexibility into those guidelines. So most of the people that I work with have done personal development already. They're already on that path. They've done some or a lot, and they're open to the idea of having to move themselves out of the way in order for the stuff to come through them. Because let's be honest, bees are my favorite things in the world, and they inspire me. So that's a gorgeous metaphor for me. You can't sit on your couch and do nothing and think that you're going to be the perfect body and the perfect weight, and your life's going to be sorted and everything's going to come to you and you're going to be healthy. No, it doesn't work, does it? It does take time. It does take effort. You do need commitment. So commitment number one, more so than a goal. Yes, you've got an image of how you'd want to be, but actually your commitment is way more important, because you'll make mistakes, you'll fall off the wagon, you'll stuff it up. But if you can stay committed, then that doesn't matter. You just dust yourself off and you keep going. And then, of course, having guidance certainly helps that. My own story is very quickly my own personal story, an eating disorder as a teen. I used to think it was my mother's fault. I realise now it wasn't. Although my mum did give me diet pills when I was about, 14 or 15, because I asked for them, because she was taking them, and they were kind of, I think they were caffeine. So, if you drink enough coffee, it does take your appetite away. It makes you crazy and can't sleep and ruins your nervous system and a whole stack of other things. But it is a good kind of diet pill. I just don't recommend it. So that put me on the path of going from dieting and restrictions and then further into eating disorders and all of the stuff that goes with there. And that's a no cheese down that hole, right? It's taken me a long time to come back, and my own journey to find the answers has really been my career, and my passion now is to shortcut that, because I find that women in their 80s are still wanting to lose weight and look good, in their 70s, in their 60s. It's like it doesn't go away unless you address it. All right. So intuitive eating is about listening to the little voice inside. So you have to be paying attention to that. And so how do you do that? Well, one of the techniques that I encourage you to learn is to eat. It's the guideline, the first dietary guideline for being a natural eater, is to eat when you're hungry. And so we have this hunger scale of 1 to 10 inside of us that you can check in with. And in a nutshell, you don't eat if you're a 1 to 4 or 5 out of 10, not very hungry. If you check in with your body and you're a 1 to 5, then you think, well, actually, I want to eat, but I'm not really hungry. Maybe I'll go and distract myself a little bit for a while. Or maybe I'll put it off, or maybe I'll have a glass of water, or maybe I will eat. I'll just know that this is not real hunger. This is not body hunger. This is for another reason. And then you can start to work on that. If you're 6 to 8, that's about optimal. That's when you eat. If it's 9 or 10, that's gone too far usually. Then you lose your discernment and your judgment, and you end up eating way too much often. So not a good idea. And the point of this technique is to learn to listen to this little voice, because there's a subtle little tiny voice inside of us that says, you've had enough, darling. And if we're watching TV or thinking about our to-do list or checking our emails or, whatever other 100 things that we're doing, eating, making dinner, whatever, and eating, then we miss that voice. We don't hear that voice. And that is our intuitive eating. And that's an absolutely powerful strategy for finding your natural, normal, healthy self and weight. Presence, I'm going to just briefly mention here because it's something that I teach that is really around mindfulness. And this helps us to, if you can identify why you're eating, and even if while you're doing it, like I was just mentioning, and you can then have the presence and awareness to recognize what's going on underneath that, then you can start to have this mindful approach to eating. And you can even embody the underlying emotions that come up. And when you embody them, they can release. So you can do your own personal emotional work in the presence of food and eating by learning how to be present. And I teach the art of feminine presence. So keep an eye out for that. I absolutely love and adore it. It is a very powerful technique once you start to practice it. Just have to move you out of the way so I know what the title of this slide is. What do you do if you're not hungry? Excuse me, I've just really commented on that. And it's really about what's the kind thing to do. And sometimes we've collapsed hunger and thirst, and so drinking some water. Sometimes it's distracting yourself for a little while. Sometimes it's checking in with yourself and asking you, am I really hungry? And if you are, if you're not, then, what am I hungry for? That's a good question to ask. And sometimes things will come up like a hug, or, I'm just eating because it's 1 o'clock and I have to, or 9 o'clock, and I have to, if I don't eat now, then I'm going to miss out, and all kinds of things that get really complicated. So it helps to listen to our inner self when we want to know when to eat and when to not eat, and will the mind or the body decide? So the other thing about this technique and becoming an intuitive eater is that you can start to distinguish between what the mind wants, and the mind wants chocolate. The mind wants to eat now. The mind wants everything in the candy store. The mind is a very poor choice maker. a decision maker, because the mind, it can be 5-year-old who wants candy or lollies. And so once you start to check in with your body with presence and mindfulness and self-awareness and intuition, you can start to work out, okay, my body, it's actually my body. My stomach's grumbling like mine is starting to at the moment. And then you can say, well, what do I want? Because sometimes you want fresh, light greens. Sometimes you want something warm and nourishing. Sometimes you want something crunchy, and so on. And so checking in with that, the body, the animal, sometimes I call it the animal part of us, because animals naturally eat very normally, and versus the mind, which gets in the way. And then there's what should I eat? What should I eat? And I want to touch on this briefly. In our culture at the moment, we tend to eat too much sugar and too much grain. So we've been indoctrinated for the last 50 or 60 or 70 years to go low fat. And the more low fat you eat, the higher you tend to eat carbohydrates. And, you think about what's typically thought of as a breakfast. It would be cereal or porridge or Weet-Bix or toast or croissant or muffin, or, like all of that, or rice, or, all of that is carbohydrate. And carbohydrate first thing in the morning tends to set us up for more sort of sugar cravings throughout the day. And so just initially, if you're a carbohydrate person for breakfast, you tend to have toast, or, you don't feel right unless you've had some carbohydrates, then I encourage you to add the eggs and the avocado, and raise your level of fats and proteins immediately. Raise your level of fats and proteins. And then eventually what you want to do with your carbs is to make sure they're more whole carbs. So white bread might go to wholemeal bread, and then wholemeal bread might go to a quality sourdough whole grain. And then, even vegetables, I can see in this image here, a plate of veggies. So it might be, instead of having 2 pieces of toast, you have 1 piece of toast, and you have a whole stack of buttered, garlic, salted mushrooms. So, all of that takes a bit of effort and it takes a bit of time. I understand that, but there are ways of hacking this so that you can get meals prepared very quickly. But you've got to start somewhere, and the swaps for the next better quality, and the swaps for adding something fatty in, good fats, and something protein. Eggs are amazing. Eggs are, unless you're allergic to them, eggs are, one of the best foods that you can start to bring in. And there's a ton of ways you can do that for breakfast. I've actually started trialing with my clients and with myself raw egg yolk in smoothies, for example. And you need really good quality eggs though, and pasture raised or grass fed eggs that have the vitamin D in them and have the vitamin A. And if the egg or the chicken hasn't grazed on worms and insects and grass, then the eggs won't have that stuff in them. But eggs is a great way to increase the natural proteins and fats first thing in the morning. It's just a matter of finding a way to have them. It could be that you boil them the night before and you have them cold the next morning, or it could be that you whiz them up in a smoothie first thing in the morning. You've got everything ready to go, you just need to add the eggs. An egg flip was always a way to go. Yeah, so you make frittatas, and you have a nice frittata in the fridge, and you have a slice of that maybe warmed up or something every morning for breakfast. So there's ways to do it. You just have to get quite creative. I know we're at 11, and I know some of you might have to leave, but I've just got a little bit more that I'm going to keep going with, and finish off some of the key points that I want to leave you with. What's better, 1 or 2 eggs for brekkie? You can have 5, you can have 6. In fact, one of the adrenal fatigue solutions that I have is 12. So you can have plenty. Thanks, Jen. I'll keep going. So the critical thing, though, is that we're not trying to be perfect, that we're not trying to, one of the things that develops for us around food in many cases, because this is the way it's marketed, is that there's good foods and there's bad foods. And so what typically we do as human beings is if we eat a bad food, we're a bad person. And if we eat a good food, we're a good person. And that's wrong. Wrong in the sense of what we're trying to achieve. That's telling us that we are our behavior, and we're not our behavior. We're a human being who makes mistakes. And sometimes we just want a croissant, or we want a hot chocolate. And so this is where cultivating the kindness and the self-honoring and the forgiveness comes into it, because some people think, oh, if I just let myself off the hook every time, I'll just eat and never stop eating. It doesn't work like that. Unless you bring in forgiveness and kindness and some self-honoring, you're always going to be following somebody else's guidelines and never following your own. And that doesn't work. The trick, there are no tricks really, but essentially you're looking to inspiration. If you want to broaden out what you're eating, you're looking for inspiration from your ancestors. So if you want to know what you're biologically able to tolerate as a food the best, and what will nourish your heart and soul and your body, have a look at what your grandparents or your great-grandparents ate. And that will help you know more. My grandparents were Dutch, and so the European diet is largely what I'm good for. My grandparents were both, farmers, peasants, and I love peasant food. And so I look for inspiration from that, from, the French slow cooking meals, which are rich in quality meats and quality fats and cream, and the Dutch are hugely into dairy, so I'm looking to buy quality dairy and bring plenty of that. So, as far as, for example, milk in the morning, should I have cow's milk or should I have almond milk? For me, a really good quality dairy, and that's another conversation we can have another day, what good quality dairy means. I can bring that in. But if your ancestry is Asian or maybe African or something like that, where milk wasn't really part of the everyday diet, Eskimos didn't drink any milk, then much more likely that other sources of protein and fats are going to be better. I'm just looking at your comments. What kind of typical food can boost energy? Well, this is what we're going to get to here. What boosts energy is nourishment. So it's a combination of, the meats, the dairies, the grains, the fruits and vegetables, the legumes, and as we know, those concepts. The most nutrient dense are animal fats and animal proteins and butter and chicken and fish, and these things are the most nutrient dense foods, and so they are a primary part of our diet. And then on top of that, we have our flavorings, our vegetables, our spices and herbs and so on. And so the best foods for energy boosting are a combination of fats, proteins, and not too much sugars and grains. And so I follow this Wise Traditions diet, and eggs, for example, for breakfast would be a great, in some form, would be a great big start to the day. So energy boosting comes from, if it's the type of energy boosting that's feeding the adrenals, what feeds the adrenals is cholesterol, vitamins A and D, the B vitamins, and sodium. So where you get vitamins A and D is things like eggs, butter, cream, and so on. So that's why they're important for breakfast. Salt, Celtic sea salt is a great source of sodium, and then your B vitamins come from everything, but also from, a little bit from grains and fruits and vegetables. And so, a smoothie with some whatever seeds, like I'm doing hemp seeds at the moment, thanks to Jenny. And I'm adding in some cream, or I'm adding in some egg yolk, and I'm adding in, maca powder and that kind of thing. And then sometimes I might add in some berries or banana. And smoothies are a nice, quick way of getting super nutrition in it, as long as it's not too fruit heavy, because that is going to be then a sugar hit. And we are, that's difficult. So anyway, we're coming to the end. There's a lot. I mean, I've just rambled there very quickly with a lot of information, and, it's bringing it all together that's tricky. How do I achieve my goal of sticking with things, with knowing more, with checking in with myself? This is a start. If you're one of the people who would like to know more about how I work, about what you might do next, or if not you, somebody else, what I'm just focusing on today is a 14-day Nourish program that is designed to kind of reset you and spend some time on yourself, to start this process of working with me to help your relationship to food, because that's the underlying essence of it all. Of course, in Australia, we have flu season and various funny viruses going around at the moment. And so we want to have our immune system as strong as possible, which a nourishing diet will give you. And then more ideas, more questions answered, more snack ideas. And then this grounding of the fundamentals of nutritional wisdom that will set you up for a better diet. And it's a lot about the wise traditions diet. It's very personal, because Ling, you probably have a Chinese background, and that's going to be very different to Michelle, who has a Russian background, who's going to be different to me, who has a Dutch background. And so some of that information does need to be personalized. So it's just a quick 14-day program, and a little consultation at the beginning, a little consultation at the end, just so I know what you're doing. I have a wardrobe declutter program that's a little bonus for people that I align with another lady to offer. Of course, we have a Facebook group that we share recipes and all that kind of thing. The VIP program contains a homeopathic detox kit that's really amazing. You just put the drops in the water, and that works really well. And then I have a nutrition seminar coming up on the 5th of August, which is via Zoom. It's all packaged up, valued at over $600. And I'm starting a group together. So we work together, and that's the 13th of July, Monday, 13th of July. The VIP package that includes the $96 product is $199, and there's also an $89 version as well, if that works for you. So if you would like that, it's a quick offer for today, pretty much today and tomorrow only. Let me know, and if you do purchase today, or tomorrow, then I've got the recording from our last event, our last nutrition event that was phenomenal, with whole food chef Holly Davis, all about fermenting and fats, and oh God, it was so good. If you've already got that, then I'll give you something else, but otherwise I'll give you that recording for special people only. Okay, I just want to finish off with this, and I'm going to hang on a little bit longer. I haven't got a client now. Oh, look, 11:11. I haven't got a client now until 11:30, so I can stay on a little bit longer to ask questions. And I'm just going to finish off with beautiful Pooh Bear. When you wake up in the morning, Pooh, said Piglet at last, what's the first thing you say to yourself? What's for breakfast? Said Pooh. What do you say, Piglet? I say, I wonder what's going to happen exciting today, said Piglet. Pooh nodded thoughtfully. It's the same thing. Because of Pooh, he loves his breakfast. He loves his food. And that's us. We love our food. So thank you for your attention, ladies. If you're not already connected with me via my Facebook group, Wildly Healthy Women, then look me up and join. I've got tons of information there. Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Nell. And I thank you, Ling. And I'm just going to be here now to, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself as I stop sharing and stop recording.